Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Health officials in Gaza say at least 16 children have died in recent days from starvation and dehydration as Israel's assault on Gaza continues. UNICEF is warning the number of child deaths will likely, quote, rapidly increase unless the war ends. Pediatricians in Gaza say they have nothing to give malnourished children.
Yes, malnutrition plays a major role in the number of children that come to us, and thus in the number of deaths there are. When a child is supposed to eat 3 meals a day and ends up eating 1 meal, that's not enough for him. Your body becomes deficient in carbohydrates, vitamins, proteins, and deficient in fats that are necessary for the body. Then the body goes into a severe dehydration state. I can honestly say that we can't even deal properly with 50–60% of the cases we receive because we have nothing to give them. The most we can do for them is either give them saline solution or sugar solution.
On Sunday, Vice President Kamala Harris called for a ceasefire in Gaza. She made the comments in a speech in Selma, Alabama, marking the 59th anniversary of Bloody Sunday.
And given the immense scale of suffering in Gaza, there must be an immediate ceasefire. For at least the next 6 weeks, which is what is currently on the table.
The U.S. Vice President's remarks came 3 days after the United States blocked a UN Security Council statement condemning Israel after Israeli soldiers opened fire on Palestinians seeking aid in Gaza City in a massacre that left 112 people dead and over 700 injured. On Sunday, officials in Gaza accused Israeli forces of killing and wounding dozens more aid seekers who'd gathered at the Kuwaiti roundabout in Gaza City. Facing growing international criticism, President Biden on Friday announced the U.S. would begin airdropping food into Gaza. While reading from an index card, Biden twice mistakenly referred to Ukraine instead of Gaza.
In the coming days, we're going to join with our friends in Jordan and others in providing airdrops of additional food and supplies into Ukraine and seek to continue to open up other avenues into Ukraine, including the possibility of a Marine corridor to deliver large amounts of humanitarian assistance.
On Saturday, the U.S. Air Force and Royal Jordanian Air Force dropped 38,000 ready-to-eat meals into Gaza, enough for one meal for about 1.6% of Gaza's population. Humanitarian groups say far more aid is needed in Gaza, where a quarter of the population is on the verge of famine. Major protests against Israel's assault on Gaza were held Saturday in a worldwide day of action. In San Francisco, police fired pepper spray and hit protesters with batons as a march passed the Israeli consulate. Thousands also marched in New York, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, Albuquerque, Charlotte, and other cities. Protesters in Washington, D.C. included the longtime peace activist Kathy Boylan with the Dorothy Day Catholic worker. She called on Biden to stop arming Israel.
We're dropping some food, and we're dropping the bombs and the tanks and the bullets and everything else at the same time. That's what he's got to do. Stop sending the money and the weapons.
Negotiations for a temporary ceasefire faced another setback Sunday when Israel boycotted talks in Cairo after Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu accused Hamas of not agreeing to provide a list of all living Israeli hostages. On Saturday, thousands of Israelis marched in Tel Aviv against Netanyahu.
Israel is being controlled by a coalition of semi-dictatorial, fascist people who don't have the good of the people in their hearts. We're being misled and led into this endless war that doesn't have an end in sight. Our government doesn't care about the more than 100 hostages that are held in Gaza right now. Our government doesn't care about the people of Israel. They only care about their own interests. They're all criminals. They're crooks. They need to go out.
On Sunday, Israeli War Cabinet Minister Benny Gantz arrived in the United States in what's being described as an unauthorized trip. Gantz, who is seen as a rival to Netanyahu, is scheduled to hold talks with Vice President Kamala Harris and other top officials. Netanyahu has reportedly lashed out at Gantz for making the trip without his approval. The Israeli embassy in Washington has been instructed not to facilitate Gantz's trip. In more news from the region, Israel repeatedly attacked southern Lebanon Saturday, killing at least 7 members of Hezbollah. There are reports the dead included a grandson of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah.